Sadhana Bhavatu Sahano Punattu Sahaviryam Karavavahai Tejasvinavadhitamastu ma vidvishavahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Together we'll chant verses 20 to 28, chapter 8, Bhagavad Gita.
व्यक्तोऽक्षर इत्युक्तः तमाहुः परमां गतिम् यं प्राप्य न निवर्तन्ते तद्धाम परमं मम पुरुषः स परः पार्थ भक्त्या लभ्यस्त्वनन्यया यस्यान्तस्थानि भूतानि येन सर्वमिदं ततम् यत्र काले त्वनावृत्तिम् आवृत्तिं चैव योगिनः प्रयाता यान्ति तं कालम् वक्ष्यामि भरतर्षभ अग्निर्ज्योतिरः शुक्लः षण्मासा उत्तरायणम् तत्र प्रयाता गच्छन्ति ब्रह्म ब्रह्मविदो जनाः धूमो रात्रिस्तथा कृष्णः षण्मासा दक्षिणायनम् तत्र चान्द्रमसं ज्योतिः योगी प्राप्य निवर्तते शुक्लकृष्णे गतिह्येते जगतः शाश्वते मते एकया यात्यनावृत्तिम् अन्यया वर्तते पुनः नैते श्रुति पार्थ जानन् योगी मुह्यति कश्चन तस्मात् सर्वेषु कालेषु योगयुक्तो भवार्जुन वेदेषु यज्ञेषु तपस्सु चैव दानेषु यत् पुण्यफलं प्रदिष्टम् अत्येति तत्सर्वमिदं विदित्वा योगी परं स्थानमुपैति चाद्यम्
Today we are going to start a very interesting portion of the Gita, which is the paths of return and non-return. Now, since the way it is such that we will change our system a bit just for this topic, because it's much easier for us to understand the topic and then read the text. Otherwise, it just sounds like "ये क्या हो रहा है यहाँ पे कुछ समझ में नहीं आता." So we are going to just change our system a little just for this topic, okay, not for everything else, because apparently it is easier for everyone to understand it if we do the meaning first and then we will do the individual verses. So this is an interesting thing, and it's a very poetical way of putting something which we should be knowing by now. For all those who have been attending classes for some time, you would know the general concept. This is a way to get us to think, because it's put so poetically, it's put in such a unusual manner. It's like, what happened suddenly? You know, he always talks rational and then suddenly he seems to take off. So what happened over here? No, he's just as rational as he has always been. He's just as committed to explaining that concept as he has always been. And he's just going to use a very different method this time. So we will also be using a different method just so we stay in tune with what he is trying to tell us. Okay, so let's start with verse 23. Yatra kale tvanavrittim आवृतिं चैव योगिनः प्रयाता यान्ति तं कालं वक्ष्यामि भरतर्षभ यत्र काले त्वनावृत्तिम् Avrutam chaiva yoginaha prayata yanti tam kalam vakshami bharatarshava. Yatra kale anavrutam. Anavrutam, don't return, in the path of non-return. Avrutam cha, and the path of return. Yogina prayata yanti. The yoginas, the yogis, having gone, in which way do they return, and having gone, in which way do they not return? Prayata means having departed. People will probably interpret that as having died. We will come to what we can look at it as. Tam kalam vakshami bharatarshava. I will tell you that time. I will tell you that time when the yogis, that means sadhaks, that means you and I and all of us who are interested in the subject, what is that time by which we go, and what is to return, and what is that time by which we go not to return? The commonly understood way is, okay, when you die, you come back to this earth, or you won't come back to this earth, you get moksha. So this is the common understanding, but it is let's understand this concept in greater detail. What is he trying to say? Telling you, I will tell you that time by which when you go, you will return. And that time when you go, you won't return. So people go into this whole story about, okay, if you die at this particular time, you're going to come back. And if you don't die at this particular time, then you're going to get moksha, whatever. There is, like I said, this is a highly poetical rendition of the knowledge. Knowledge can be taught to us in 4 different ways, as you're going to study now in How Do You Know What You Know? Okay, knowledge can be taught to us, can be communicated to us. We can get an understanding in 4 ways. You're all familiar with the 4 ways, right? What are the 4 ways? Tell me the first one, please.
Perception.
Perception. Second one?
Inference.
Inference. Bharat, no more from you. Third one?
Anumana.
Comparison. And the fourth one is?
Tradition Agami.
Traditional, Agami. So 4 ways by which we learn. The first way is by direct perception. Is there anybody new in the class today? Let's see. Any new names? Sounds like a few.
My name is Radhalakshmi.
Okay, you're new? Okay,
Yes,
how
ma'am.
many people are new? Please let me know. Give a thumbs up or something by which I may know. Okay, Priyanka. Who else?
Manju, today's my first class.
Okay.
I am also new.
Okay. Is this our Sood, is it? Okay, so let's just understand the concept, okay? Since there are 4 ways in which we learn anything. These are known as the pramana. Pramana is a valid source of understanding. Okay, we are going to study it. The class is starting soon. We are keeping on saying soon. We don't have a date for it, but soon. And the first way you learn anything is through direct perception. Direct perception of pratyaksha. The Sanskrit word for it is pratyaksha. So pratyaksha is direct perception. So how is it you know currently that the class is on? How do you know this? You know this because of pratyaksha. You can see it. You can hear it. That's how you know it is on. How do you know that the wall behind you is white? Because you can see it. So the first way we learn anything is through direct perception. Direct perception means see it, hear it, taste it, smell it, touch it. How do you know Karela is bitter? Because you tasted it. How do you know the gulab jamun is sweet? Because you tasted it. The first way we learn anything is through direct perception. The second way we learn something is through an inference. It's called anumana. You make an anumana about something. You make an inference. That means you don't really see it. You haven't had direct perception. You haven't seen it or heard it or tasted it or smelled it. You haven't done any of that. But how do you still know? How do you know, for instance, that the person teaching you Gita actually knows it? You cannot hear it or taste it or feel it or touch it or see it. How do you know? You're making an inference. And what are you making that inference on? Making it on something that you have heard or smelled or seen or tasted or touched. Some inference you're making. That's how you claim that the person who is teaching you the Gita knows it. So, the second way of knowing things is through inference. You know there is a fire by seeing it. But if you cannot see the fire, you can also infer the fire if you see smoke. So you didn't see fire, you saw smoke. You looked out of your window and you saw a lot of black smoke. Immediately you know there's a fire, call a fire engine. How did you know? You inferred it. You see a feather, you know that a bird has been here. Right? It's an inference. They say pug marks in the forest and they know that the tiger has been there. You've been on the safari, they'll show you the pug mark. Sometimes all you get to see is the pug mark. But they say, oh, you see, that's the tiger. You had gone that way. So inference is the second way by which we know anything. It is known as anumana. First one, direct perception, which is pratyaksha. Second one, inference. In Sanskrit, anumana. Third one is through comparison. Can you hear me?
Yes, Shanti.
Okay. Looks like electricity is gone here. The third way is through comparison. Comparison is known as upama. Upama in Sanskrit. You know, you may not have seen Kashmir, but someone tells you Kashmir is the Switzerland of India. So you get some concept of what it is. You may not have seen the dragon fruit, but somebody tells you, oh, you know, on the outside it is like this, on the inside it is like this, it is like how kiwi has little seeds in it, like that dragon fruit also has little seeds in it, but it's pulpy, whatever. Some explanation they give you. And then you know, okay, so that's what a dragon fruit is like. So we know things through comparison. The fourth way we know something is through agami or tradition, an authoritative source. An authoritative source tells you, a doctor tells you, take this antibiotic for your fever. You take it. Why do you take it? Not because you yourself knew it, that this was it. Not because you have inferred it with any reason. Neither have you compared it to something. Then why did you take it? Because you took an authority's word on it. Okay, so there are four ways of learning. The current way which we are learning from is, in this particular portion, is comparison. We're going to deep dive into this method of comparison because it's not so simple. The method of comparison is the method of poetry, of art. Okay, so if somebody tells you a story, any story, like Aesop tells us a story there was a tortoise, there was a hare, they had a race. Telling you a story. What is that story saying? It's telling us of an imaginary thing between some tortoise and some hare. What's it got to do with anything? Really nothing. But still you learn from it. And what do you learn from it?
Slow and steady wins the race.
Slow and steady win the race. But did he ever say that? He never says that. What does he say? He says there was a tortoise and then there was a hare and they decided to have a competition. And yet somehow we learn. This is the method of comparison. Sometimes through comparison, we learn completely wrong things. Sometimes we start discussing like this. Oh, there was a time in Satyuga when a hare and a tortoise actually spoke English, and then they had this conversation. Some others will say, don't talk rubbish. This is all nonsense what you're saying. Both are not getting the point. So, to learn from comparison is itself an art. Just that to learn from inference is an art. And that art is known as logic. To learn from comparison is another art. Now, we're going to do this comparison method right now. So you'll see how complicated it can get. What he has told us is, I will tell you the time by which a yogi going will return. And what is that time? When going, he will not return. Now, this is incomprehensible. What are we supposed to even understand from this? So, we're going to explain this. We're going to do this whole portion in this verse where he has not yet told us. So, we'll read it first. We'll understand it first, and then we'll read the portion so that it becomes crystal clear. I hope.
Ma'am, I have a question. Ma'am.
Please, go ahead.
Why do you say that this is comparison? Why not inference?
What is your name? I can see R. Su.
Ramani.
Ramani, you are bringing about a question which philosophers have discussed for years and years and years. Some of them claim that there is no separate one in comparison. There is only inference. Some divide the two out. You're welcome to take your view on it. You can say comparison is nothing but inference. But what happens when you go deeper into the study of logic, you find that logic follows certain rules which comparison doesn't. So over a period of time, people have started saying that there is deductive and there is inductive. So deductive will follow inference, inductive can use comparisons. Can use comparisons, probability, whatever other things there are. So
Now, okay, I've understood. It's a little deep. Understood. That clarifies. Thank you.
I think you'll stop asking questions now.
No, I will not.
If anybody is unclear about any point, then please bring it up right now. Is all good, at least for the new people? Up to this point, all good? Because we're going to build up. So please be, sure up to this point. This is not a class, as you know, as you will soon know, where we all just sit down and relax and say, oh, how nice everything is. No, we actually expected to understand over here. And then having understood, execute. So please understand it step. Are y'all all okay? All new?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, all Kalyan Kumar, okay. Kiran, Satish and I. Authoritative, please explain again. Okay, so authority is when it is something you cannot perceive on your own. Your direct perception will not help you. You cannot infer it on your own because you're not an expert in that subject. So how are you going to use any inference? To use logic, you have to have data, right? You have no data, so how are you going to infer? And then comparison also you cannot use. In fact, in most fields, a person of very developed in that field, very well informed in that field, may not be able to explain to us why exactly something has to be done. Like, we cannot always explain to a child in any kind of rational manner why something has to be done, because the child will not accept the rationality of that. So, to the extent that we are children in any field, we need to follow the authority if we wish to benefit from the knowledge of others. We can say, I don't want your knowledge, I will do this myself. Fine, that's a stance we can take. But if we want to benefit from the knowledge of others, and why would we want to benefit? Because it is impossible that we can put in time, effort, and energy in learning every field. So we can't do that. It's not possible. There's way too many fields and our small intellect, as Kalidasa says. I don't know if you read, what is that about the Raghukulam? If you read his thing, he starts with that. Where is that Raghukulam? The mighty Raghukulam, and where is my Mandamati, my little intellect, to understand it? So like that, where is the knowledge of this world? Everything available to us, how can we even understand it? So should we deny ourselves the benefit of that knowledge? No. What we do is we hitch our wagon to somebody who knows that very well. And we follow that person blindly, as it were. As it were means don't use your reasoning when you're following the authority. So does that mean reason is useless? No, reason is not useless. You use reason to choose the authority. We're going to study all this in great depth when the new class starts. So we'll take it up then. Okay? All right. Everybody. Anir, Ban, you're okay. Okay, that's Kushal. Everybody is new. Jyoti, you're okay. Everything is clear so far. All right. So let's start. Now, oh, I have to do screen share, right? Okay, so what are we studying? We're studying the paths of return and not return. This is what he's going to do. Omkar, am I? Yeah, I have. You can all see the screen? Yes, right? All right. So let us understand this concept that he is trying to explain to us, which is the concept of how we create in our lives repetitive experiences and how we can get out of these repetitive experiences. You already know, right, that whatever you have been through many times. If it has been a fight with a spouse, you've been through it many times. If people have taken you for granted, then you've been through this many times. If you've had losses in business, you've been through this many times. If you failed at what you were doing, you've been through this many times. If you have been rejected, if you have been unhappy, whatever, it's not a one-off. Our experiences seem to repeat themselves. And our experiences repeat themselves. It is the path of return. We return to that over and over and over again. So he's making an explanation to us as to why is that happening. What's going on over here that we repeat those experiences over and over again? That's the path of return and non-return. You can take it as life. You can say, okay, come back to life and repeat that whole life again. If you cannot take that, if you feel, what, another life and all, nonsense, it doesn't matter, because it is a law of life that whatever is true of the macrocosm is true of the microcosm. It's the same cycle. So we're doing that in each life. We don't need to worry about whether we have another life or not. We're doing it right now. So let's learn how not to repeat. Not how not to repeat, but if you want this repeated, then this is how it's happening. If you don't want it repeated, you will know how it's happening, and then what to do about it. So there's no prescription over here about whether you should repeat it or not. But if you want it repeated, well, this is why it happened. So do more of it. If you don't want it repeated, then this is how it happened. So don't do more of it. All right. So let's assume this is our normal life. Okay. I'll tell you in the poetic way. Let us say that we are living on planet Earth. We are in Mrityuloke. That's how the text will put it. We are in this world. Okay, we are on planet Earth. Let's tell you the poetical way. When you do punya in this world, you go up to heaven. Okay? And when you do papa in this world, you go down to heaven. So much I'm sure you all have heard so far. You all know these stories, right? They are stories. There is no such place as heaven and there's no such place as hell. These are not such geographical locations. But this is the story we hear. And then they say, when your punya is over, then what happens to you? You come back down to earth. These are the stories we are told. And when your pap is over, what happens? You come back to earth. All right, so this is our story that we are living here on earth. We'll do punya, we'll do papa. If we do punya, we go up to heaven. If we do papa, we'll go down to hell. But whether we go to hell or whether we go to heaven, we return back. We return to earth. We come back. And then what do? We go through this again. This is the path. These are the paths of return where you go through it over and over again. So let's understand what's happening. What happens is that all of us unconsciously, innocently, ignorantly function on our desires. We feel like doing something and we do it. Then that thing has a consequence. It has an external consequence. It has an internal consequence. If you do good things, you feel very, very good in your heart. Haven't you ever done that? You did some nice charity, you did some good work, you helped some person. You did good work. Good work means you felt like helping somebody and helped that person. You felt like giving something and gave that thing. It could be a shoulder to somebody else. It could be money. It could be anything. You felt like giving it, you gave it. And then what you experience is a deep sense of happiness within yourself. This you have experienced. This sense of happiness that we experience within ourselves is known in this method of teaching as heaven. There's no heaven that we are going to away from here. Heaven is nothing but a state without mental agitations, a state of peace, a state of bliss. And of course, poetically, it's described in very many different and beautiful ways. It's shown in the clouds and everything is white and, the apsaras are dancing, whatever. Just shown as a place where you are happy, basically. That's heaven. Then when the effect goes away of whatever action you did, you come back to your normal life. That means you've come to earth. However, on the other hand, if you felt like doing something bad, something wicked, something mean, and you did it, you felt like doing it, you felt angry and you shouted at people, whatever you did, then you go through a lot of mental agitation. These mental agitations are known as hell. Hell is not a place we are going to. It's only it's a mental state. It's a mental, highly agitated, miserable, unhappy state. Okay? So, how did you reach heaven and how did you reach this hell? Means, how did you reach this very peaceful state? Or how did you reach this very unhappy state? Can you tell me? What did you do or not do? Tell me.
Through your thoughts?
Sorry?
Through the thoughts?
Yes, true. What else? What else? What happened? Tell me the full story.
You were selfish, that's why you got agitated.
Okay, tell me the full story. Okay, here it is. Let's write it down. When we function on good desires, okay, we function on good desires. That's G full stop, D full stop. It's difficult to do full stops here. When we function on good desires, what does that mean? I felt like doing something and I did it. When you function on good desires, you reach this happy mental state called heaven. When you function, on the other hand, on bad desires, then you reach this unhappy mental state. You get agitated. Clear so far? When we function, please listen carefully to all definitions. When we function on good desires, we reach heaven. When we function on bad desires, we reach hell. These good desires are known as punya, and the bad desires are known as papa. So when you function on punya, you reach swarga. When you function on papa, you reach naraka. That means when you feel like doing something, and because you felt like doing it, you did it. It's a desire-ridden action. You get heaven and hell. The result of desire-ridden actions is that you enjoy whatever it is, hell or heaven, for some time, and then come back to your normal mental state. Okay? Now, this is the way everybody lives their lives. And that's why they go through this up and down, heaven sometimes, hell sometimes. Heaven less frequently, hell a little bit more, but it goes on, up and down, up and down, up and down. This is known as the path of return. It is also known as the path of the moon. It is also known as the path of darkness. Why is it the path of darkness? Because it is done based on desires. It's just blind. I felt like doing it, I did it. This is blind action. And that's the repetition of cycles that we go through. So when you come to spiritual sadhana, when you come to start, you say to yourself, I don't want this kind of blind life. I want a life with knowledge. I want to reach enlightenment. I want to understand what is going on. When you start engaging your intellect, you start doing what is known as sadhana. Sadhana is only sadhan, is a means to achieve moksha. When you start doing sadhana, that means you start engaging your intellect. You start thinking it through. Should I do this or should I not do it? Just because I feel like doing something is no good reason to do it. Maybe I should do it, maybe I shouldn't do it, but I have to stop and think, should I do that? When I start functioning in life like that, towards the goal of enlightenment, then I come to the other path, the path of light, what he will call the path of light, the path of the sun. Okay, so let's see how that works.
Sankiji,
It's gone.
I just have a question.
Bolo?
What had you said? It's the path of return, path of darkness, and what was the third you said?
Sorry, I didn't get that. Path of return is the path of darkness, path of moon.
Moon, M-O-O-N.
Yes, Chandra, moon.
Blind desire.
So Jankiji, why moon?
Because it's dark night, it's compared to sun. It's called the path of the sun and the path of the moon.
Okay. All right. Thank you, Janki.
All right, so then the other path is the path of the sun. Okay, so let's see what happens here. What happens here is, this is the path of the sun.
Ma'am, just a moment. The path of the moon is a repeated cycles that happen in our lives. Basically, we are unaware about what's happening in our lives, and that's the path of the moon. And that's
we are unaware of what we are doing to make these things happen.
Okay. All right.
We are aware of what's happening, right? I know I'm unhappy. I know I'm happy. I know I'm successful. I know I'm not successful. But why?
Right.
Kaise ho gaya? And then
Correct.
Since we don't know it, then we start giving all sorts of reasons.
Janki.
Okay.
Who is speaking? Please, I can't see you speaking. What is your name? Whoever asked this question.
Yes, I'm Murtaza.
Murtuza.
Hi.
Okay. Fine.
Yes.
Okay. Just because, in a real world class, I see faces, I see people over here also. I'd like to know, who am I talking to? It's strange to talk to people. I don't know anything. And so it's difficult to tell whether it's relevant to the person that's being spoken to when you know nothing. Yeah, Priyanka, you wanted to say something?
So the good deeds and the bad deeds, is it a thin line between intention and deeds?
It's the thin line between being blind and not being blind. Good intentions are good, but they can lead you into any amount of trouble if you do them blindly, which is what happens to most people. Most good people say, oh, I did good things and I suffered. You don't suffer because of goodness, never. It's not possible. We suffer because of being blind. If I want to help a tiger, I can't go to the tiger and start offering him food. He will take whatever I'm offering with my hand.
Yes.
Okay, so I have to know that I'm helping the tiger, so please do it with a stick or something. Don't do it with your hand. Because look at it from the tiger's point of view, right? Naturally, if you are offered dead food versus fresh food, won't you take the fresh food? So you're giving him a dead animal with a live thing. He'll take the live thing, which is the most sensible thing for him to do. You do the same, right? So if you see it from his point of view, you'll know that, okay, I want to help the tiger, I want to give the tiger food, but I better keep my distance. Okay, so that is called using your head while you're doing good things. Otherwise, we just, there's a saying in English, it says charity cannot solve, charity creates more problems than she solves and cannot solve half the problems she creates. So that is not to say charity is a bad thing, but anything done blindly will just get us into trouble.
Janki ji, this is Shilpa here. May I ask a question?
Yeah, go ahead, Shilpa.
So it's a question which has always puzzled me, and I thought it fits here, that what is really good desire and good action. And it has always puzzled me in the context of the first chapter, because Arjun is saying, look, I don't want kingdom, I don't want wealth. I would rather take the moral high ground. And to me, that seems like a very good desire. And then Krishna spends the next 17 chapters telling him to fight. So it's always puzzled me, this bit.
Because we are hardcore hypocrites. This is not Arjuna. For 13 years, Arjuna has worked to fight this war. He has all his life wanted this war. Now he has come to that place and suddenly he's taken moral high ground. Why? Not because any of those thoughts he has erased in his mind, but because now he's being overwhelmed by some emotion. He has forgotten that the reason he wanted to fight the battle, the reason Krishna is with him in this battle, is because it was not about him at all. It was about the fight for righteousness. Okay, that's what the battle was about. But when he comes to the battle, the great Arjuna forgets the whole point of the battle and says, oh, no, I don't want to fight. I don't want this. I don't want that. Hello, this wasn't for you in the first place. Where did you even come into the picture? This was a battle of righteousness. And you knew it for so many years that it had to be done. You have forgiven your foes 1,000,000 times. This is now the time to raise your arms and fight. But now you come, oh, no, how can I fight anybody? What will happen if I fight? This is not really you talking. This is that emotion taking over. This is hypocrisy for you, Arjuna, but this is not you. So that's what he tried to tell him. This is not you. This is not the right path for you. That path that he would have taken, I won't fight, would have led him to eternal agitation. Because that was not Arjuna, that was not right for him. So what is right and what is good and what is bad? What is good is unselfish. What is bad is selfish. In this case, Arjuna was being extremely selfish. Instead of thinking about righteousness, instead of thinking about the country, he had temporarily got into, he was not that type of person, but he temporarily got into a emotional storm.
Yeah, but if I may just, take it one step further into our own lives and say that in our own lives, this constant, fight for position, power, wealth, etc. And on the one hand, you might say, okay, that's a selfish desire. So the question becomes like, just doing that fight without being attached, I mean, is that the way to look at it, or not to have those desires is the right way to look at it? That becomes
Neither, Shilpa. It's not about you. The fight was never about us. That's the way to look at it. In this situation, suppose, let us say, a husband is beating up his wife. Okay, a husband is beating up his wife. A husband is beating up his wife. What should that wife do? It's not. So if your answer is that she should walk out on that's what you think, then that's what should be done, regardless of whether you are the husband or you are the wife. It's not about us. It's when I bring myself into the picture, that's when life gets so complicated. Life is very simple. And how do we know it's simple? Just your friend asks you the same question, you know what to do. But when the situation is on us, you know what to do. That's why we are all the greatest philosophers when the problem is somebody else's. When it comes home to us, we have a problem. So from that we have to learn. And why am I making this about me? This is about right? If anybody is abusing anybody in any way, that person should not be taking this abuse. It could be by beating, it could be by robbing, it could be by whatever. Why should anyone abuse anybody? If it's happening, I have to stop it. Whether I'm the person who is being treated like this, I'm an outsider, whatever.
Right.
Okay, so let's take ourselves out of the equation, and then it becomes very easy.
Okay. Thank you.
Seeing all these numbers. What is all these numbers? Oh, there's something happening on the chat. Dr. Malti Bodhare give examples of good and bad desires. Example of good desire is I want to help you, I want to serve you, I want you to be happy. All these are good desires. Bad desires is I want to steal from you, I want to rob from you, I want to take something from you, I want to. All these are bad desires. Anything that is unselfish is good. Anything that is selfish is bad.
Thanks, ma'am.
Deepak, when Shankaracharya says that the entire world is consumed by sorrow, is this reference to the path of moon or just to hell as expressed in this diagram? It's with reference to the whole diagram. We've only started the first part of it. So Deepak, wait, it is with reference to the whole thing, except one small point, enlightenment. If you're not at that point, it's with reference to everything else. So when we do the diagram, it will be clear. Sarthak. The way to solve good desires would be to act on them. What's the way to act towards bad desires? Do they go away if I disengage? Sarthak, that's not correct. The way to solve good desires would be to act on them. Not at all. We are about to study what we are supposed to do. So we'll just come there. Okay, I think I answered it. Okay. Just don't go further in your thinking, please. Always stay with where we are. You don't have to jump forward. Impulsiveness can be as much at the intellectual level as it can be in anything else in this world. So just get so much so far. What is we to get so far? When we function on good desire-ridden, when we perform good desire-ridden actions, we reach heaven. When we perform bad desire-ridden actions, we reach hell, means mental agitation. Okay? When we act based on good desires, prompted by good desires. Our actions are desire-ridden, but good. Then we reach a happy mental state. When we function on bad desires, desire-ridden, still desire-ridden, same desire-ridden, but bad, then we reach agitation. We become very worked up, very upset. How, get into a fight. Think about it. When you get into a fight, what happens? It's not that you get into a fight and then you go away. No, it goes on and on and on in your mind, right? How dare you speak to me like that? I will show you. Blah, blah. It goes on and on. Your heart is beat is up. You're very agitated. If somebody says something to you at that time, you'll snap at them. It's hell. It's a terrible life to live like that. So why did it come about? Because both types, good or bad, are desire-ridden actions. So whatever it is, even whether it's mental agitations or it's mental peace, you come back eventually to your normal state, which they say hell. You come back to Mrityuloke. You live in heaven, you live in hell, you come back Mrityuloke. This is the path of darkness. This is the path of the moon. This is not the recommended path to heaven. No. So how can it be to hell? This is not the way a human being is expected to live his life. Then how is he expected to live his life? He's expected to be using his head. He's expected to never function on desire-ridden action, on desire-ridden impulses, push, pressure from within. You're longing, craving, desiring to do something, and therefore you did it. This is a bad way to do things. If you feel the pressure within, don't do it. Just don't do that action. Stop until you have enough capacity to think it through before you execute that action. So the right way, it's about to tell us, is the path of sadhana. The path of sadhana means the path of light. You use your head. You have good desires. Obviously, you have them, but you don't function on them. You have your good desire, which is a good thing. That's why it's called good. But then you apply your intellect to it and decide what is the right thing for me to do in this circumstance. If you function like this, then you will live a very nice life. You will reach, they say, you will reach enlightenment. You will have full knowledge. But what happens to us, unfortunately, is we do our sadhana. Okay? So we do our sadhana. But unfortunately, very often, we pollute it with some good desires as well. It's a pollution, the good desires. We pollute it. When we function in life like this, because remember we did the good desire in action, we get a much superior type of heaven to go to. This heaven is known as Brahma's world. Remember Lord Brahma, he lives in the highest heaven. Now in this world, it's very nice because it is way beyond Indra's heaven. Indra's heaven is the other one. It's a low category heaven. But if you do your sadhana along with good desires, that purification that is taking place takes you to Brahma's heaven, which is a completely different mental state. It's such a wonderful state over there because you did good desire in action. So you had to get to heaven. And then you stay in Brahma's heaven for a long, long time. You know, he told us earlier how long is the day of Brahma? 4.32 billion years. But you will stay in that Brahma's heaven for a long, long time. You live in a fabulous mental state. You'll be in absolute peak of happiness, as it were. You're suffering that happiness because you did the good desired in action. And you're stuck in that place for a long, long time. But you get an advantage in this heaven, which you did not get in the earlier one, which is as soon as you finish your punya, as soon as you finish it, you then go to enlightenment. You can call it God, you can call it Father in heaven, you can call it Allah, you can call it Shunyata, you can call it whatever you want. You go to that ultimate point of spiritual growth. But you will have to go through Brahma's heaven. Brahma's heaven, where you will have the best things in the world. You will have Gita lectures by Lord Brahma himself, and he will teach you in a fabulous way. Okay? Everything will be superb. And having lived in Brahma's heaven for a long, long time, then you go to enlightenment. This path is known as Krama Mukti. Krama Mukti, or the path of the sun. It is the path of the sun because there's light. You did your sadhana, you worked on the intellect. But it's in krama. Krama means in stages, because you polluted it also with some good desires. And therefore you get to suffer the joys, the greatest joys known, before you get to enlightenment. Okay, he's going to tell us only so much in this. But I'm going to tell you the rest of the story too, which you will read when you come to the Upanishads. This is the last way. This is called Kaivalya Mukti. You must have heard of this. Please forgive my handwriting. I'm not very good with this. It looks so messy. Okay, Kaivalya Mukti. Kaivalya means Kevala. It comes from Kevala. Kaivalya. Kevala means what did you do? Only did that. You only did sadhana. In this path, there was only sadhana. You did not pollute it at all with anything else. You only functioned on your intellect, doing good for the world, but with light, with your head working. You thought about how good, why good, where good, what is the highest good. You thought it all through. And that was your sadhana. You worked with your intellect and you went through the right royal path, straight, directly to enlightenment. This is the path that is recommended to us. Don't pollute it with any good desired in activity, but do it directly for enlightenment and head straight there. Now, we have three paths. We have the path of the moon, we have the path of the sun, and we have Kaivalya Mukti. Right? Path of the moon is how every human being lives their life. Everybody lives it like that. When you come to spiritual education, whether it is Vedanta or any spiritual education, these are the truths of life, please. It's got nothing to do with any particular religion. In fact, it's a good idea to argue that there aren't so many religions. There is only one religion. It's truth. Either something is true or it is false. And if you know the truth, you are religious. If you don't know it, you're not. So we have this crazy notion that there are so many religions and they're all telling us different things. No. All great souls found the same truth. And we have to also find the same truth. Along our path, we will come across many misunderstandings. And our whole journey will be nothing but cleaning those misunderstandings out. Therefore, in Vedanta, it is always said that you're never gaining knowledge, you're always effacing ignorance. Right? So everybody, all great souls told us the same basic truth. But when it comes filtered through our weird misunderstandings of life, we see it differently. Otherwise, it's all the same thing. And what are they trying to say? They're saying, your goal is enlightenment. Let's say your goal is X, because they said it in various ways. They said merger with God, they said enlightenment, they said moksha, they said it in various ways. They said, meet God, sit with God, many things they said. Whatever it was, it meant that that is the ultimate goal. You use your head to do the right things to reach there. And you gain knowledge to understand what are the right things. It gives you some thought-provoking ideas which makes our intellect work. And thereby we choose the right actions for ourselves. Nobody's telling us what to do. We choose it for ourselves. Okay? So when you follow the path of the moon, it's in darkness. You don't do any of this. When you follow the path of the sun, you do it, but you pollute it a bit. But when you do only sadhana, then you go straight the right royal road to that ultimate goal of human existence. And the only question you may have around here, I can see that there are some questions. I'm removing this, okay? So it's clear, I hope. Remove this, okay. Anita, what do you mean by finish your punya? Means that feeling goes away. That's what it means. Just, you do something good. Don't you feel nice whenever you have served or something? You've done something nice. You feel good for a period of time, and then that thing goes away. That's what it means. That nice mental feel you got out of doing the good action, whatever you did, fades away. That's what it means.
Okay. Thank you.
What do you mean that good desires are polluted? Please give examples for clarification. Surendra, it's not that good desires are polluted. That good desires are a pollution because you're functioning in a desire-ridden manner. That's the pollution. There is good means it's good. That's why it's called good. But what's wrong with it is, what makes it polluted is, there's no intellectual application. So you just felt like doing something good and you did it. So that's the pollution, that the feeling, the emotion, the desire prompted that action. That's the pollution in the sadhana. We should be able to do what is right, regardless of whether we like it or not. Okay, Surendran?
Yeah, thank you, ma'am.
So sadhana is your duty. Yes, Poonam, sadhana is your duty, but you have to understand what that means. It means that you choose your action with your intellect for the goal of self-realization, and you understand the knowledge before you try to use your head, because we must know the facts, right, before we choose to use our head. On the path of Kaivalyam, the person must be acting on some desire. Sarthak, we always have desires. The big thing in life is we don't act on them. In other words, you have a desire to study the Bhagavad Gita. That is why you're here. But you don't act on that desire. You don't come because you have the desire. You think about your desire, decide whether it is appropriate or inappropriate, and then you do it. If according to you it is appropriate, do it. If according to you it is inappropriate, don't do it. Take it with food, it's very easy. All of us have a desire for food. All living beings have a desire for food. But you can't eat every time you have a desire. Does that mean you should eat when you have no desire? No, that's not what it means. Of course you have to eat. Of course you have the desire, but you must filter that desire through your intellect, and then, I hope that is clear. Oh, no, this is moved. Yes, so he's not acting on any desire, but he has the desire for the goal, yes. He's doing good deeds and helping needy. Kiran, doing good deeds is a very good thing. Helping needy is a very good thing. But every desire, good or bad, must be filtered through the intellect. Otherwise, we can land up in any amount of trouble, number one. And number two, trouble for ourselves and also trouble others. Somebody is needy, they come to you, please give me money, please give me money. You don't think, you take out money, you give it, that person takes drugs with it. So you've ruined that person's life just because I want to be good. No, think it through. How can you want help? How can I be of help to you? What should I do? There are times where people will ask us for things, but the best thing we could do for them in that time is say no. So I have to use my head, to know, is this the time I can serve you by doing something for you? Or is this the time I can serve you by refusing to do something for you? So you have to use your head. Pankaj, why do we always refer darkness as bad and light as good? Darkness is one which always remains constant, but anything that has light will perish someday. That's sweet, Pankaj. There is no such thing really as darkness. Darkness is nothing but the absence of light. You can argue like that also. You can argue in any way. What they say, there are lies, damned lies, and there are statistics. So these kind of arguments can be in both ways. So no, darkness is not the constant, because let light come and then darkness has to go. How do we do sadhana? How we do sadhana, Dr. Bodhare, is that's the whole question that the Gita tries to answer. So all these studies are meant to answer that question. A lot of questions. Does it mean working only on our intellect without good desires, actions, but just right actions? We have whatever desires we have, Manoj. They are there, good or bad, whatever it is, they're there. But when our body does something, when we act, it must come through the intellect. Must decide whether this is worth doing or not. And having decided, then do whatever it is you wish to do. So working on our intellect means, working with our intellect means filtering our desires. It's not working apart from our desires. It's working with the same desires, but filtering them. Jaise chai peete ho na. When you're filtering the chai, you are keeping out some things and having some of the things. So like that with your desires, you do exactly the same thing. Then you get a good cup of tea. Otherwise, you'll get chai with all the leaves kang in your mouth, which is what happens to us.
Thank you, ma'am.
Sarthak. So people in the path of the sun aren't applying the intellect. No, Sarthak, they are. Look at the diagram. They're doing their sadhana, but it is polluted. They are using their intellect, but not 100% of the time. Arun said, only self-realized person has no desires. Correct. Following Kaivalya Mukti path means not acting on desires. Is my understanding correct? Not acting on desires means not acting on desires without filtration by the intellect. None of us have any option but to act on our desires. But we have to filter it. Decide which ones to do, which ones not to do. We can't act apart from our desires. We don't have a capacity to do that. But we filter out.
Okay. Thank you, Janki.
Kaushal Roy, for charity, adhikari, anadhikari, knowledge is required. That's right. Kaushal, I forgot, you said some other name, huh? Yes, that's correct. You have to know who Desha Kala Patra before you do charity. That's correct. So to know Desha Kala Patra, the time, place, person, you have to use your head. Otherwise, how would you even know? Okay, so that's it for today. We'll continue next time.